Cosmic Laws, Growth and Evolution. In the preceding chapter, we contemplated that reincarnation is an eternal principle because our growth and evolvement is oscillatory. We grow, slip back, progress, and regress. Seldom does growth occur continually in one direction without flaws. We reincarnate and ideally pick up where we left off. In this chapter, let us examine growth and evolution in more detail because it too is a universal law. Everyone physically has experienced this law. So vast is its expression that we can only cover a few essential points. Growth refers to an increase in size, weight, power, and complexity. It also means a gradual development toward maturity. In biology, individual growth is referred to as ontogeny, a process by which organisms develop and change form from a fertilized egg into an adult. One misconception concerning positive, constructive growth process is they do not include errors or destruction, and in many cases they do. Accepting this truth can take a lot of pressure off ourselves and those whom we must evaluate, such as our children or employees under us at work. Mistakes are an inherent part of this divine law. It is foolish to think that we have to develop perfectly in order to grow spiritually. Cellular metabolism is a good example of this bipolar aspect of growth. Life-sustaining processes of cellular components and chemicals at the cell level are characterized by degradation as well as synthesis. Ecologists and people of primitive religions know this well. Death, decay, and transmutation are integral parts of the regenerative cycle of life. In a non-physical growth process known as the behavior of learning, trial and error is perfectly normal and natural. Any human behaviorist will agree that making errors is a legitimate part of the learning process. All too often in Christianity and other religions, failure is equated with error and destruction and therefore is considered a sin requiring punishment. A good indication of this is the use of the name Satan to refer to everything that is anti-God and anti-Christ or evil incarnate. Satan is derived from the Aramaic word sata, S-A-T-A, meaning to slide, to miss the mark, or to go astray. And each of us has done that. Certainly, many errors can be described as evil and even heinous, but the positive effect of errors in constructive growth process often has not been acknowledged. Such misunderstandings have had a tremendous atrophic effect on man's mental, emotional, soul, and spiritual development. The attitude of the Hindu in this matter is vastly different from that of the Christian. Hinduism deifies death and destruction. Shiva the destroyer is no less than the third person or quality of the Hindu Trinity. The name Shiva means auspicious, that which affords signs of a successful result. Shiva destroys the ego, but he also is one who conquers death. What makes this very important for Christianity is that it recalls to mind the only figure in Christianity who conquered death, Jesus of the Christian Trinity. Sananda Jesus, in a communication on August 1970, explains this aspect of the law. In God's law and methods there are life, force, energy, growth, and a period of deterioration and dissolution, when it becomes unto itself nothing but substance matter, and then reforms and regenerizes into another or higher aspect of itself. For energy can never be lost, it is ever continuing, and this is rightful progress. But destruction of itself is not evil, for the process of growth and evolution is a period of dissolution or consumption and reformation. Therefore, the development stage of destruction in a constructive process of growth is not in itself evil or error. But man, seeing this process, partly understanding this process, has leaned toward this process and has named it evil. True evil, then, is when the destructive or negative polarity of growth, which is to say, dissolution or disintegration, outweighs its positive pole, which is the constructive, integrating aspect. To have harmony in our lives, equilibrium between the two poles of this law must be maintained. Too many positives in growth can be just as detrimental as too many negatives. In 1967, May 27th, Archangel Michael explained this idea in more detail. As the light within you grows and you can bear more and more light, you not only come closer to the Godhead, but you open more and more to various potentials, talents, and expressions. That is why you are not enlightened all at once. For the light would so blind your particular potential or energy capacity that you would be unable to bear it and to utilize it constructively. Here, then, is the key to this particular unfoldment and revelation, that which is your own capacity for constructive growth. You must be able to use it constructively, which is good, which is for promoting the motion of life and light and truth and love, where you are in a manner that will serve not only your own growth and opportunities, but serve the whole as you are but a part of the whole, and the whole is concerned with each one of its parts. This is truth and eternal law. This is yours to master and to be mastered by, for each master accepts this understanding, uses this understanding, and desires this procedure. For it is his own protection within the great universe of many laws, of many orders, of many means of structure. The law of God, the structure of God, is the same wherever you go. This is unchangeable and immutable. Thereby to master it in one place is to have the potential to master it elsewhere. Though its form and its expression may deviate from what you are accustomed to and what you desire to entrance. On the physical level, cancer is an obvious example of too much growth being destructive and potentially lethal. Since cancer cells do not respond to the body's normal regulatory factor, they grow and divide unchecked and invade healthy tissues. Let us now turn to another aspect of this cosmic law, evolution, defined scientifically as the growth of groups of similar individuals through generations and over extended periods of time. In biological terms, this is called phylogeny, the evolutionary history of an organism as a species. The scientific theory or law of evolution governs the physical development of plant and animal life forms through time. It was adequately described for the first time by an English nature scientist, Charles Darwin, in his landmark work, The Origin of Species, published in 1859. Evolution, a process of adaptation of successive generations of organisms to change in their environment, is without question true here on Earth. Because it is one aspect of a cosmic law, we would expect to find it operating even if we were living on another planet. According to Zora, a Neptunian king who communicated on January 3, 1963, we would be right. You will find a lot of our organs to be similar to yours, but not everything, because our atmosphere on Neptune is entirely different than the atmosphere on Earth planet, and we have adjusted naturally to our climate and so forth. Currently, two main stumbling blocks to man's spiritual development surround the theory of evolution. One, that man, mind, body and soul originate from out of the primordial soup of earth elements, and is solely the product of the highest expression of life that evolved on earth, kingdom by kingdom, for billions of years. And two, that there is no inherent plan or purpose to evolution, that it is basically a directionless procedure with no end goal. In 1871, Darwin published The Descent of Man, which extended his ideas on the random process of natural selection to human origin and evolution. Man descended or ascended, however one wishes to describe it, from the apes after millions of years of slow, gradual development from the dust of the earth. But given the physical changes of plant, animal, and human life forms, what remain unresolved are those creations of man that cannot be explained by natural selection: art, music, mathematics, philosophy, and religion. For many, these qualities of human culture indicate our transcendence of other forms of life. Consequently, in biology textbooks, cultural evolution is separated from chemical evolution. There is purpose, then, in what is and in what happens in nature. According to some scientific and theological analysts, this conclusion of Aristotle's, that living beings in their development have a divinely guided purpose, is one of the buckles of a straitjacket that Aristotle strapped on the mind of man and which endured for 2,000 years. The current scientific position on the purpose of evolution is given by Ernst Mayr, one of the finest biologists in the United States, in his book, The Growth of Biological Thought, Diversity, Evolution, Inheritance. There is and never was any program, purpose, on basis on which either cosmic or biological evolution has occurred. If there is a seeming aspect of progression in biological evolution, this can be explained entirely as a result of selection forces generated by competition among individuals and species, and by the colonization of new adaptive zones. In a communication on October 24, 1971, Archangel Gabriel answers the question raised by these two controversies: man's earthly origin and whether evolutionary development of life has a purpose. Let us regress here and see what has happened to the race of man since the beginning of time or creation, when he was purely of the light and true essence of God in action. His descent into matter was but an experiment or a period of inquiry, where he was required to know or to have knowledge, tasting both of the negative and the positive polarities of energy matter. He predominantly became enthralled with that which was his own creation or ideas, not because he felt that evil or error was better than good or positive action, but because he saw that there was an alternate route to all projected positive elements in his creative knowledge of life and life form. Thus is an example of what did take place in the beginning of Genesis of your time on earth, since you have it recorded in many scriptural references. Regardless of race or religion, you may be inclined to follow at this time. Man, in his true spiritual evolution, was attracted unto the planet as you now know it, a third-dimensional, physical, elementary origin of life, substance, and concepts. It was meant to be a house unto which certain animal and vegetable kingdoms were to develop and to experience higher life forms. But because mankind, as you know, a son of God over the light, came into responsible governing sharing, he substituted the plan and the principle by incorporating his own energy frequency into these animal forms. But when he began to desire control over all these lower beasts and to use the energy sources of the planet for his own manipulation and clarification, he took an animal form that was more conducive to expansion and experimentation and rested his spiritual light force within it, which is a possibility and a prerogative of the higher energy forces, such as the light body of the spiritual resurrected form. By introducing himself into these animal forms, not one or two at a time, but whole groups of them, he became involved in the evolutionary pattern of these forms. All life today is participating in a divine plan whose goal is the enactment of the cosmic laws we have been discussing, the spiritual growth and evolution of all planetary life forms in physical embodiment. Mankind has a special contribution to make to this tremendous co-evolutionary process by adapting and growing into his next higher evolutionary form, the light body, through which our I Am or Christ consciousness functions fully. Let there be love for our individual growth in humankind's collective evolution. Let us be still for a moment, so that we perceive a truly great sight each and every day, the will of God as the divine law of growth and evolution unfolding on earth through every living being.